If you don't learn how to handle irritation now, other people will keep deciding how your day feels. One comment, one look, one message, and suddenly your mood is gone. Not because the moment was powerful, but because the reaction was automatic. Emotionally grounded people understand this early. They don't wait until anger costs them their relationships, their health, or their inner peace. They learn to interrupt the reaction before it becomes a spiral, before the mind starts replaying words, before the body tightens, before the entire day carries the weight of a few seconds. This audiobook is for those who are tired of handing their emotional control to strangers, coworkers, family, or circumstances. For those who don't want calm only after everyone else behaves better, because people won't always be considerate. They won't always understand you, and waiting for that is exhausting. Real calm comes from noticing irritation early and choosing a different response, not suppression, not explosion. Awareness. If this resonates with you, like this video, subscribe for long-form emotional clarity and share it with someone who struggles with anger or irritation. Your peace is too valuable to be decided by someone else's behavior. Chapter 1. The moment you stop handing out remote controls, most people think anger is something that happens to them. Like it's weather. Like it rolls in from nowhere, takes over the room, and leaves them cleaning up the mess. But here's the truth. Anger isn't the storm. Anger is the alarm. It's the signal that someone just grabbed the remote control to your mind and started changing the channel without asking. You know the feeling. You're doing fine. Maybe you're on your way to work. Maybe you're trying to relax after a long day. Then someone cuts you off in traffic like you're invisible. Or your coworker makes a joke that's really a jab. Or a family member hits you with that exact tone that has irritated you since you were a teenager. And suddenly your chest tightens, your jaw locks, your thoughts speed up. You feel your patience evaporate. In that moment, it feels like they did it to you. But what if the real problem isn't what they did? What if the real problem is the instant handoff of power? The moment you silently say, "Here, you get to decide how I feel now." There's a man I once heard about who worked construction outside of Phoenix. Long hours, heat that felt personal, bosses who never said good job, and paychecks that barely covered life. Every day on his drive home, there was this one intersection. And every day someone did something stupid, drifted into his lane, took a left turn late, slammed their brakes for no reason. He would explode, not just a quick shout but full body rage. He'd arrive home angry, stay angry through dinner, and then wonder why his sleep was garbage and his blood pressure was high. One day, his daughter, maybe 8 years old, climbed into the passenger seat with him after school. They were stopped at that intersection. A guy swerved across lanes without a signal, cutting him off. His fists tightened on the steering wheel and he started to go off. His daughter didn't yell. She didn't lecture. She just asked in a quiet voice, "Dad, does that man know our name?" The question landed like a weight. He looked at her, then looked forward at the car disappearing into traffic. "No," he said. She nodded like it was obvious. "Then why does he get to ruin our day?" That moment didn't magically cure him, but it changed him because it exposed the core issue. A stranger who didn't know him, didn't care about him, and wouldn't remember him in 10 minutes was being given authority over his mood, his evening, and the way he treated his family. Not because the stranger was powerful, but because he kept handing over the keys. That's where we begin. Because the goal isn't to become numb, it isn't to become passive, it isn't to pretend people aren't annoying. The goal is to stop being emotionally owned. Anger is expensive. It costs energy. It costs focus. It costs relationships. It costs health. And the worst part is this: it rarely punishes the person you're angry at. It punishes you. It poisons your body, hijacks your decision-making, and trains your mind to expect conflict everywhere. So the first shift is simple but brutal. Stop saying, "They made me angry." Start saying, "I got angry." That sentence is your way back to power. Because if they made you, you're a puppet. If you got angry, you're a person with choice. Now, choice doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel the first spark and you decide whether to turn it into a wildfire. Think of anger like gasoline. A lot of people carry it around all day. Stress from work, bills, sleep debt, not enough exercise, too much caffeine, too much noise, too little quiet. The smallest match can set it off. The person who triggered you didn't create the fuel, they just lit it. And if you're honest, you know when you're carrying fuel. You can feel it before anything happens. You're already tense, already impatient, already looking at the world like it's in your way. That's not their fault. That's a warning light on your dashboard. In American culture, we love the idea of being real. We say things like, "That's just me," or "I tell it like it is," or "If someone disrespects me, I have to respond." But a lot of that is just a fancy cover for being undisciplined. Real strength isn't how loudly you react. Real strength is how calmly you choose. There's a difference between being controlled and being composed. Controlled people are polite until they're not. Composed people are steady, even when provoked. Let's make it practical. Right now, the next time someone bothers you, you will feel the first wave. That wave is automatic, that's your nervous system, but the second wave is optional. The second wave is the story you tell yourself. He cut me off because people are selfish. She said that because she doesn't respect me. They didn't text back because they don't care. My coworker is always trying to make me look bad. My family doesn't appreciate me. That story isn't neutral, it's gasoline. It turns an event into an insult, a moment into meaning, a small thing into a personal attack. So here's your first discipline: separate the event from the interpretation. The event is what happened. The interpretation is the meaning you assigned. Anger grows in the interpretation. A guy cut you off, that's the event. He thinks I'm nothing. That's the interpretation. A coworker didn't include you in a meeting. That's the event. They're trying to sabotage me. That's the interpretation. Your partner sighed when you started talking. That's the event. They don't value what I say. That's the interpretation. Sometimes your interpretation is right. Sometimes it is. But in the moment, your brain doesn't care. It just wants a reason to fight. And it will manufacture one. This is why learning to pause is a superpower. Not a cute pause, not a fake calm. A real pause where you create space between stimulus and response. That space is the only place you can choose who you are. Picture a professional athlete. A referee makes a bad call. Fans scream. The game is on the line. If the athlete loses control, they get ejected. The best ones don't pretend they aren't angry. They feel it, then they channel it. They take that energy and pour it into performance. They don't waste it on drama. You are training for the same thing. Life is your arena. People will provoke you, intentionally or accidentally. The question is, do you turn that energy into damage or into direction? Here's a tool that works in real time. When you feel anger rise, don't ask, "Why are they like this?" Ask, "What do I want to protect right now?" Because anger is almost always a bodyguard. It shows up when you think something is threatened. Your pride, your time, your sense of control, your image, your boundaries, your comfort, your status. If you can name what you're protecting, you stop being a victim of the emotion and become the manager of it. Maybe you're protecting your time because you feel overwhelmed. Maybe you're protecting your pride because you feel disrespected. Maybe you're protecting your sense of control because you feel uncertain. Maybe you're protecting your identity because you feel judged. Once you name it, you can choose the right response, not the loudest response. Sometimes the right response is silence. Sometimes it's setting a boundary. Sometimes it's walking away. Sometimes it's speaking calmly and directly. But you can't choose wisely if you're flooded. That's why the next discipline is breathing, but not in some soft, vague way. Breathing is control of the steering wheel. When you're angry, your body prepares for war. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tighten. Your vision narrows. Your brain shifts toward fight mode. You lose access to your best thinking. So when anger hits, you take one slow breath through your nose and let it out longer than you breathed in. Do it again. Longer out than in. That tells your body, we're not dying. We're not under attack. It buys you 10 seconds of intelligence. 10 seconds is enough to not ruin your day. Now in the middle of your life you might be thinking, this sounds good, but people are genuinely irritating. You're right. Some people are rude. Some people are thoughtless. Some people are manipulative. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you get angry every time you meet a difficult person, you'll be angry forever. Because difficult people are not a rare species. They're everywhere. And you can't control the world. You can only control your standards and your reactions. That's what maturity is. It's not getting your way. It's not winning every argument. It's keeping your dignity when you don't. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about the hidden addiction behind anger, the feeling of being right. Anger often feels powerful because it gives you a rush. It makes you feel justified. It makes you feel bigger. It makes you feel like you're standing up for yourself. But the power is fake. It's the kind of power that burns your own house down to prove you can control the fire. A disciplined person learns to trade being right for being free. Because here's the question that matters. Do you want to win the moment, or do you want to win your life? Winning the moment might mean snapping back, sending the angry text, slamming the door, making sure they know you're upset. But winning your life means you protect your peace. You protect your reputation. You protect your future self from cleaning up a mess you created in 30 seconds of emotion. So when someone pushes your buttons, remind yourself of this. They can't push a button you didn't install. Buttons are old patterns, old wounds, old insecurities. They're predictable reactions you've practiced for years. And the good news is this: anything practiced can be unpracticed. You can uninstall buttons. You can rewrite your response, but it starts with awareness. You don't fix what you refuse to notice. Tonight or the next time you're alone, replay the last time you got angry, not to shame yourself, to study yourself, like a coach watching game film. What happened right before the anger? What did you assume it meant? What were you protecting? What did you say or do? What did it cost you? What would a stronger version of you have done? That's not self-criticism. That's self-command. And here's a final mindset shift for this chapter. Most people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. The driver who cut you off is thinking about their exit. The coworker who made the comment is thinking about themselves. The stranger who was rude is thinking about their own stress. That doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does shrink it back down to what it is: noise. not a personal assault on your identity. When you stop taking everything personally, you stop living like you're under constant attack. You are not here to react. You are here to lead yourself. So as you move into the next chapter, carry this with you. The world will always offer you reasons to lose control. Your job is to stop accepting the invitation. Ask yourself, where have you been handing out the remote control to your mood? Who has been allowed to dictate your peace with a look, a comment, a text, a tone? What would change in your life if you decided that your emotional state is not a public resource for anyone to touch? And what kind of person do you become when you learn to feel anger without obeying it? Chapter 2. Building the gap between trigger and response. Last chapter, you saw the real problem clearly. Anger isn't something people do to you, it's a power you hand over. You learned to separate the event from the meaning you assign to it, and you started reclaiming control by creating a pause before the reaction. Now we're going to take that pause and turn it into a reliable skill, something you can use anywhere with anyone under pressure. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. The difference between a calm, powerful person and an easily irritated person isn't personality. It's training. It's repetition. It's the ability to stay in charge of yourself when the world tries to put you on a leash. Imagine you're carrying a cup of coffee filled to the very top. You're walking through a crowded airport. People are rushing, rolling suitcases, bumping shoulders, checking their phones. Every little collision threatens to spill your coffee. Now most people blame the crowd when they spill it. That guy hit me. This place is chaos. People have no manners. But the real reason it spills is because it was filled to the rim and you weren't steady. Your nervous system is that cup. Your patience is the space inside it. If you're already filled to the top with stress, exhaustion, and resentment, you don't need a major disaster to lose control. A small bump is enough. A comment, a late reply, a tone, a glance. And then you're spilling anger all over the people who didn't even cause the original pressure. So before we talk about what to do in the exact moment of irritation, we have to talk about what kind of internal environment you're living in. Because anger loves a crowded mind. I want you to picture a smoke alarm. It's supposed to go off when there's a real fire. But if the battery is weak or it's overly sensitive, it starts screaming when you make toast. That's how a lot of people live. Their alarm system is overreactive. They're responding to burnt toast like it's a house fire. The goal isn't to rip the smoke alarm off the ceiling and pretend nothing is wrong. The goal is to calibrate it, to make it accurate, to make it disciplined. In your daily life, calibration starts with one decision. You will stop treating every irritation like an emergency. You will stop reacting as if your survival depends on winning every moment. That doesn't mean you become soft. It means you become precise. There's a woman in Chicago who worked in a busy hospital, the kind of place where the pace never slows down and the emotional weight is heavy. She was good at her job, but she had a temper, especially with coworkers who moved slowly or made mistakes. When she was stressed, she became sharp. She corrected people with an edge. She rolled her eyes, she snapped, and in her mind it was justified. This is serious. We can't afford incompetence. One day, a new nurse made a small error. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to be corrected. The woman felt the anger rise and she did what she always did. She cut the nurse down with her tone, quick, clean, and cold. The nurse went quiet, didn't argue, just nodded, finished the task, and walked away. Later that shift, the woman found the nurse crying in a supply closet. Not because she'd been corrected, but because she'd been humiliated. The nurse said something that changed everything. "I already hate myself for messing up. I didn't need you to add to it." That moment didn't excuse the error, but it revealed a deeper truth. The woman wasn't protecting excellence, she was relieving pressure. She was using anger as a release valve, and she wasn't controlling people with it, she was damaging them, including herself. That night, she went home and realized something painful. Her anger felt like strength, but it was actually weakness. It was her inability to hold discomfort without dumping it onto someone else. That's where discipline begins. Not when you never feel angry, but when you stop using anger to make yourself feel better. So let's build the gap, not with fluff, with real tools you can use in real life. The first tool is what I call naming the sensation. When anger rises, your mind wants to jump straight to the story. How dare they? But before you go there, you name what's happening in your body, not dramatically, simply. My chest is tight. My jaw is clenched. My stomach is hot. My shoulders are up. My thoughts are speeding. Why does this work? Because the moment you describe it, you create distance. You stop being the anger and start observing it. You move from being inside the storm to watching the clouds. And observation gives you leverage. Try it the next time someone irritates you in a store line. You're standing there and someone cuts in front like you don't exist. The old version of you instantly goes to war. The trained version of you goes inward first. My heart just sped up. My hands just tightened. Now you're steering again. The second tool is a phrase that will save you thousands of dollars in future regret. Not my job. It's not your job to fix strangers. It's not your job to educate grown adults. It's not your job to punish someone for being inconsiderate. It's not your job to correct every wrong you see. Your job is to protect your peace and move with purpose. In America, we've got this culture of constant engagement. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants the last word. Everyone wants to clap back. Social media train people to respond to everything like it's a courtroom argument, but your life isn't a comment section. You don't get points for being angry. So when someone does something stupid or disrespectful, you can say to yourself, "Not my job." That doesn't mean you accept mistreatment. It means you stop acting like you've been assigned to manage the world's behavior. The third tool is a shift in what you value. Right now, a lot of people value being respected more than they value being free. That's why they explode. That's why they have to say something. Because silence feels like losing. But silence is often winning. Not every disrespect deserves a response. Not every ignorance deserves your energy. Sometimes the strongest move is to let people stay small and keep walking. Here's a real-world example. You're at work and a coworker takes credit for something you contributed to. The anger hits because you're protecting your pride and your effort. Fair. But the question is, what response actually serves you? If you erupt in the meeting, you look unstable. If you send an angry email, you look petty. If you hold it in and stew all week, you poison yourself. The disciplined response might be calm and direct. After the meeting, you pull the coworker aside and say, "I noticed you presented that as your work. In the future, I need you to acknowledge my contribution." That's not drama, that's standards. And if they keep doing it, you document your work and speak to your manager professionally. Again, not emotional warfare, strategy. Anger wants to swing a bat. Discipline wants to build a plan. Now let's talk about something most people ignore. Your anger is often delayed. It isn't only about what's happening right now. It's the accumulation of what you haven't said for years. Some people explode over small things because they've been swallowing big things. They've been tolerating disrespect. They've been avoiding hard conversations. They've been saying yes when they mean no. Then one minor irritation becomes the final straw, and they act like the straw is the whole problem. If that sounds like you, you don't need a better temper. You need better boundaries. Boundaries aren't threats. Boundaries are decisions. I'm not available for yelling. I'm leaving if you insult me. I'm not taking calls after 9 p.m. I'm not discussing that topic right now. I'll talk when we can both be respectful. When you set boundaries early, you don't have to explode later. You stop training people to treat you poorly. You stop telling the world, you can do whatever you want and I'll just absorb it. A boundary is you protecting your inner space before it becomes a battlefield. Now let's go even deeper. There are two types of anger, clean anger and dirty anger. Clean anger is information. It tells you a line has been crossed. It helps you act with clarity and firmness. Dirty anger is ego. It's the need to dominate, punish, embarrass, or prove you're right. Clean anger builds. Dirty anger destroys. Clean anger sounds like, that doesn't work for me. Here's what I need. Dirty anger sounds like, you always do this. You're unbelievable. Clean anger has a point. Dirty anger has a target. When you're bothered by others, most of the time it's dirty anger trying to take over. It's the part of you that wants to feel superior, the part that wants control, the part that wants instant relief. Your job is to convert dirty anger into clean action. You do that by asking one question: what outcome do I want? Not how do I hurt them back? Not how do I win this argument? What outcome do I want? If you want peace, you respond differently than if you want revenge. If you want respect, you respond differently than if you want attention. If you want to lead, you respond differently than if you want to prove a point. This question forces you to think beyond the moment. It pulls you into maturity. Here's a metaphor that will stick with you. Think of your mind like a house. People are always knocking on the door. Some are polite. Some are rude. Some show up uninvited. Now you can't stop people from knocking. But you can decide who gets inside. When you get angry and bothered instantly, it's like you open the door to everyone. You let them walk into your living room, throw their mess on your floor, and control the temperature of your home. You become a hostage in your own space. But when you build the gap, you become the homeowner again. You hear the knock. You look through the window. You decide whether to engage. You decide whether they're worth your time. Not every knock deserves an answer. And here's the part that changes everything. You can still be strong without being reactive. You can still be assertive without being emotional. You can still confront without losing yourself. That's power. Now let's bring this into the most personal arena of all, family. Family knows your buttons. They helped install them. They know the tone, the phrase, the look that can rewind you back into an old version of yourself. Maybe you're an adult, but one sentence from a parent turns you into a teenager again. One comment from a sibling makes you feel dismissed. One moment at the dinner table makes you feel like you're fighting for respect all over again. The way out isn't to fight harder, it's to upgrade who you are in the room. When a family member pushes you, your first move is to slow down. Not to submit, but to stay present. Then you speak from your standards, not your wounds. I'm not doing this conversation if we're going to insult each other. I love you, but I won't be talked to like that. I'm going to step outside and come back when I'm calm. That's not weakness, that's leadership. Because leadership isn't controlling others, it's controlling yourself. Now I want you to understand this. You are always training your brain. Every time you explode, you reinforce the habit. Every time you pause, you strengthen the new path. Your mind is a muscle. It becomes what you practice. So the discipline is simple, not easy. Simple. Pause. Name the sensation. Breathe longer out than in. Ask what outcome you want. Respond with clean action or walk away. Do that enough times and you become someone different. Not a person who never feels anger, but a person who is no longer owned by it. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. As you close this chapter in your mind, I want you to picture the next moment someone tries to pull you into their chaos. You feel the heat rise, the impulse to snap, the urge to prove yourself. And then you remember who you are becoming. You remember the gap. You remember that you don't have to open the door. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still treating irritations like emergencies? What situations make you spill the coffee because your cup is already filled to the rim? What boundaries have you avoided setting that are forcing you to explode later? And what would your life look like if your default response to provocation became calm, clean, and intentional instead of fast, emotional, and expensive? Chapter 3. Stop letting people rent space in your head. You've already seen the truth. Anger is a power you hand over, and the moment you create a gap between trigger and response, you take the remote back. You also learn that your body is the first battlefield, and your discipline is what keeps you from spilling anger everywhere. Now we're going to go deeper, because even when you learn to pause, there's still one place people can keep hurting you long after the moment is over: inside your mind. Most people don't just get angry when something happens. They get angry again and again and again. They replay it in the shower. They rehearse the argument while driving. They imagine what they should have said. They build an entire courtroom in their head and act as judge, jury, and executioner. And while they're doing that, the other person is living their life. That's the part that should wake you up. Someone can bump into you at a store, make a disrespectful comment, act entitled, or treat you unfairly, and the event itself might last 10 seconds. But if you keep replaying it for 2 hours, you didn't just experience disrespect. You volunteered to extend it. You took a short moment and turned it into a long sentence. That's not strength. That's mental slavery. There's a reason this happens. Your brain is designed to search for threats and unfinished business. It wants closure. It wants justice. It wants control. But the world doesn't always give closure, and it definitely doesn't hand you control. So your mind tries to manufacture it through rumination. It tells itself, if I think about this enough, I'll solve it. But you're not solving it. You're feeding it. Picture your mind like a living room. Someone walks in with muddy shoes and leaves footprints. You could clean it up and move on. Or you could keep staring at the footprints, getting angrier every minute, talking about how disrespectful it is that they did that, while the mud dries and hardens into the carpet. That's what rumination does. It takes a problem and grinds it deeper into you. So the question becomes, how do you stop being bothered by others when they're not even present? You stop giving them free rent. In America, we talk a lot about paying bills. Rent, mortgage, insurance, gas, groceries, everything costs something. But there's one bill a lot of people pay without noticing: the mental bill of constantly reliving disrespect. It's expensive. And it's optional. Let's make it real. Imagine a guy in his 30s working a solid job, trying to build his life. He's got goals, he's got responsibilities, he's got dreams he hasn't told anyone about yet. But he has one weakness: he takes everything personally. His boss speaks sharply and he seethes for hours. His friend cancels plans and he builds a whole story about betrayal. Someone leaves him on read and he starts constructing a narrative about being unimportant. From the outside, it looks like he's just sensitive or reactive. But underneath, it's something else. It's an identity problem. Because when you're easily bothered by others, it's often because their behavior feels like a verdict on you, like it means something about your value. If they disrespect you, you feel small. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. If they criticize you, you feel threatened. If they disagree with you, you feel attacked. So you don't just react to what happened. You react to what you think it says about who you are. The solution isn't to argue harder. The solution is to stop auditioning for approval. You need an internal scoreboard, not an external one. An external scoreboard is living by other people's moods, opinions, and reactions. It's walking around like the world is constantly grading you. That creates anger because you're always trying to control outcomes you can't control. An internal scoreboard is living by your standards. It's deciding what kind of person you are, regardless of who approves, who criticizes, who claps, and who doesn't. When you have an internal scoreboard, other people's behavior becomes information, not identity. It becomes data, not a verdict. A coworker is rude, data. A stranger is inconsiderate, data. A family member is immature, data. It doesn't mean you tolerate it, it means you stop absorbing it. Here's the next discipline: stop assuming everything is intentional. This is where people get trapped. They assume malice when it could be ignorance. They assume disrespect when it could be distraction. They assume betrayal when it could be stress. And sometimes it is intentional, sure, but you don't need to be correct about their motives to protect your peace. When you assume the worst, you throw your mind into fight mode. You become tense, suspicious, ready to react. You start treating the world like an enemy. That's exhausting, and it makes you miserable. So instead, you practice the most powerful mental reframe you can learn. Maybe it's not about me. Maybe they snapped because they're overwhelmed. Maybe they were short because their life is messy. Maybe they didn't reply because they're scattered. Maybe they were rude because they were never taught better. Maybe they're just not that deep. This isn't making excuses. This is refusing to take on unnecessary pain, because pain is unavoidable in life. But a lot of suffering is self-created through interpretation. A man cuts you off in traffic. Pain, inconvenience, surprise, suffering. People are trash. Nobody respects me. I should have followed him and taught him a lesson. A friend forgets your birthday. Pain, disappointment, suffering. I'm always the one who cares. Nobody values me. Your partner has a bad tone. Pain, tension, suffering. They don't love me. They're ungrateful. This relationship is doomed. Do you see the difference? The suffering is the extra story. So the way you stop getting bothered is by becoming allergic to extra stories. You don't need to turn every moment into a movie. You don't need to write a script of betrayal and disrespect every time someone is imperfect. You need to stay in reality. Reality is what happened. Fantasy is what your emotions claim it meant. Now let's talk about one of the biggest reasons people stay angry. They want someone to pay. They want the other person to feel what they felt. They want punishment. They want an apology that sounds exactly right. They want the other person to admit they were wrong in the perfect tone. But here's the cold truth. You can't build your peace on someone else's behavior. If your calm depends on their apology, you're still handing them control. The mature move is to decide something simple. I don't need them to understand for me to move on. That sentence will set you free. There are people who will never get it. There are people who will never admit it. There are people who will never apologize. There are people who will never change. If you need them to become better for you to be okay, you're chaining your emotional life to someone else's character. That's a terrible investment. So you release the need for payment. You stop demanding emotional compensation. You take your lesson, you take your boundary, and you keep moving. Here's a story that hits home for a lot of people in the U.S. A guy in Dallas is working hard, trying to climb, trying to get ahead. He's in an office where politics matter more than performance. A teammate throws him under the bus in front of leadership. Not subtle, not accidental, straight betrayal. He goes home furious. He plays it over and over. He writes speeches in his head. He imagines destroying the guy with words. He wakes up angry. He goes to work angry. His performance drops. His mood becomes poison. Meanwhile, the coworker is fine, laughing at lunch. Then he realizes something that changes him. He says, "This guy already tried to take my reputation. And now I'm letting him take my sleep too." That's when he shifted from anger to strategy. He documented his work. He stayed professional. He built relationships with the right people. He stopped venting to coworkers who fed drama. He kept his emotions private and his actions sharp. Within months, his consistency exposed the other guy's pattern and leadership started trusting him more. He didn't win because he yelled. He won because he didn't get distracted. That's what anger does. It distracts you. It pulls you away from your priorities. It hijacks your attention. It makes you waste energy on people who aren't building your life. So here's the next mindset shift. Your attention is your currency. In the modern world, everyone is trying to buy your attention. Ads, headlines, social media, coworkers, family drama, random strangers with loud opinions. Attention is valuable because whatever you give attention to grows. Give attention to petty people, and your life becomes petty. Give attention to resentment, and your world becomes heavy. Give attention to drama and you start living in chaos. But if you give attention to your goals, your health, your mission, your self-respect, your future, then the small stuff gets smaller. That's how you become unbothered, not by being numb, but by being occupied with something that matters more. Now let's get practical again. Here, what you do when someone gets under your skin and you catch yourself replaying it. You interrupt the replay. Not with positive thinking. With a command, you say, "Stop, that's enough." Then you ask, what's the next right action? Not the perfect action. The next right action. Maybe the next right action is to drink water, breathe, and reset. Maybe it's to write down what happened so you can respond calmly later. Maybe it's to set a boundary with someone. Maybe it's to let it go and return to your work. Maybe it's to have a direct conversation when you're steady. But you don't stay trapped in the mental argument loop. You don't keep feeding the fire, because every time you replay it, you're not preparing, you're poisoning. And here's a powerful truth. You will never think your way into peace while your body is in a threat state. That's why movement matters. When you're stuck in your head, get into your body, take a walk, do push-ups, clean your space, drive with music, take a shower, do something physical to signal we're moving forward. Anger loves stillness. Loves sitting and stewing. It loves isolation. Motion breaks the spell. Now let's talk about the hardest one, letting go of being misunderstood. A lot of anger comes from this feeling that people don't see you correctly, that they assume things about you, that they judge you, that they twist your words, that they don't appreciate what you do. And yes, that hurts. But here's the discipline. You don't need to be understood by everyone to be solid in yourself. Some people will misunderstand you no matter what. Some people will project their insecurities onto you. Some people will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. You can't control that. What you can control is whether you stay clean, whether you stay consistent, whether you stay aligned with your own character. The moment you stop trying to manage everyone's perception is the moment your peace expands. Because then you're no longer performing, you're living. So as you move through your day, you keep this truth in your pocket. Other people's behavior is a test, but it's not a test of your worth. It's a test of your discipline. You don't pass by winning arguments. You pass by staying in control. You pass by choosing your standards over your impulses. You pass by refusing to let a small person pull you into a small reaction. Now take a breath and think about your own patterns. Who have you been giving mental rent to? What situations do you replay that steal your energy long after they happened? Where are you still living on an external scoreboard, waiting for respect, approval, or apology before you allow yourself to be calm? What would change if you decided that your attention is sacred, and you only spend it on what builds your life instead of what drains it? If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Chapter 4. Mastering disrespect without losing your dignity. So far, you've taken back the remote control, built the gap between trigger and response, and stopped giving people free rent in your head. You've started replacing emotional reflexes with intentional choices, and you've learned that your attention is your currency. Now we're going to face the moment that breaks most people, the moment they swear they have no choice but to react. Disrespect. Disrespect is the spark that turns calm people into chaos. It's the reason so many conversations go from normal to nuclear. It's the reason relationships fracture, careers get damaged, and people spend years carrying bitterness like a second job. And the crazy part is this: most disrespect isn't even serious. It's a tone, a smirk, a comment, a look, a subtle dig. But because your ego wants to protect itself, it treats that tiny moment like a full attack. If you want to stop getting angry or bothered by others, you have to master disrespect. Not by becoming passive, not by pretending it doesn't bother you, but by learning how to respond in a way that protects your dignity without poisoning your peace. Let's start with a hard truth. A lot of what people call disrespect is actually disappointment. Someone didn't meet your expectation. Someone didn't act the way you hoped. Someone didn't show you the appreciation you wanted. Someone didn't treat you with the care you give them. That hurts, but pain is not a command to react. Pain is information. The issue is that most people don't want information. They want relief. And anger gives quick relief. It makes you feel strong for a moment. It feels like taking your power back. But if you look closely, it's usually the opposite. It's you giving your power away to the need to prove something. Real power is being able to feel disrespected and still choose your next move with a clear mind. Now, disrespect comes in different forms. There's the accidental kind where someone is careless or clueless. There's the selfish kind where someone puts themselves first. And then there's the intentional kind where someone wants to push you, test you, embarrass you, or dominate you. This chapter is about all of it. Because if you don't learn how to handle disrespect, you'll spend your life reacting like someone else owns the buttons. Here's the first skill. Stop confusing emotion with obligation. Just because you feel insulted doesn't mean you have to respond like you're insulted. Feelings are signals, not orders. They tell you what's happening inside you, but they don't get to run the show. A disciplined person can feel a strong emotion and still act with control. That's what maturity looks like in real time. So when disrespect shows up, the first thing you do is hold your face and body steady. Not stiff, steady. Because your body is always communicating. And if your body communicates insecurity, people push harder. You've seen this in real life. Someone gives a rude comment and the other person immediately changes posture, tightens up, gets loud, starts talking fast, starts defending themselves. The disrespectful person senses the reaction and keeps going. That's because reactive people are predictable. They can be controlled. But when you stay steady, you become difficult to manipulate. You don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you flinch. This doesn't mean you tolerate the behavior. It means you respond from your standards, not from your nervous system. Now let's talk about the second skill, the calm stare. There's a reason certain people walk into a room and nobody tries them. It's not because they're the biggest. It's not because they're the loudest. It's because they have a presence that says, "I'm not available for foolishness." Presence isn't aggression. Presence is certainty. When someone says something slick, you don't have to fire back instantly. In fact, instant comebacks are usually ego-driven. Instead, you pause. You look at them calmly, not angry, not amused, just calm. That pause forces the moment to breathe. It interrupts their rhythm. It makes them feel the weight of what they said. Then you choose one of three responses. You can ask for clarity. What do you mean by that? You can name the standard. Don't talk to me like that, or you can exit. We'll talk later and walk away. Notice the common factor: no emotional begging, no arguing, no spiraling, just clean action. That's how you shut down disrespect without becoming disrespectful. Now here's a story that shows this in the real world. A young guy in Atlanta gets a promotion. He's excited, motivated, and he wants to prove himself. But there's an older coworker who's bitter. The coworker starts making little comments in front of others, subtle digs about how the young guy must know someone or got lucky. The young guy starts feeling that heat rising. He wants to snap. He wants to embarrass the guy back. He wants to win in front of the group. But he remembers something important. If he reacts emotionally, he becomes part of the drama. And drama is how careers stall. So the next time the coworker makes a comment, the young guy pauses, looks at him calmly, and says, "If you've got feedback about my work, bring it to me directly. Otherwise, let's keep it professional." Then he returns to the task like the conversation is over. No yelling, no disrespect, no argument, just a boundary. The room goes quiet. The coworker tries to smile it off, but the power shifted. Because the young guy didn't fight like a wounded person. He responded like a leader. And here's the secret: people who disrespect others are often looking for a reaction to feed their ego. When you deny them that reaction, they lose interest. You become boring to their games. That's why composure is so powerful. It starves immature behavior. Now let's address something critical. Some people don't just disrespect you with words. They do it with patterns. They cancel on you constantly. They ignore your messages. They make everything about themselves. They take and never give. They cross lines and then act surprised when you're upset. And if you only handle disrespect in the moment, you'll stay stuck. Because the real solution isn't in what you say. It's in what you allow. What you allow teaches people how to treat you. This is where many people confuse being kind with being available. Kindness is a choice. Availability is a boundary. You can be kind and still be unavailable for disrespect. That means when someone repeatedly crosses the line, the answer isn't bigger anger. The answer is reduced access. Less time, less attention, less availability, less emotional investment. In the US, a lot of people stay connected to disrespect out of habit, guilt, or history. They think, but that's my friend. But that's family. But we've known each other for years. History is not a reason to accept poor treatment. If anything, history is more reason to demand respect. Now let's talk about the hardest version of disrespect, public disrespect. Someone says something slick in front of others. Someone embarrasses you. Someone throws you under the bus in a group setting. This is where people lose control because ego hates being exposed. Here's what you do. You don't chase the crowd's approval. You don't try to prove yourself to the room. You respond with calm authority. You keep your voice low. You keep your words short. You keep your tone neutral. Because the louder you get, the smaller you look. You might say, "That's not accurate," and move on. Or, "We'll address that later," and move on. Or, "Let's stay on topic," and move on. Then after the moment, you handle it privately and directly if necessary. This is discipline. This is self-respect. You're not ignoring the disrespect. You're choosing the battlefield. You're refusing to fight where you'll lose your dignity. Now here's the mental shift that makes all of this easier. Stop expecting emotionally immature people to act mature. A lot of anger comes from unrealistic expectations. You keep expecting someone who has shown you who they are to suddenly be different. You keep wanting a selfish person to be considerate, a careless person to be thoughtful, a disrespectful person to be respectful. And every time they act like themselves, you act surprised and angry. That's self-inflicted frustration. When someone shows you their level, believe them. Then adjust your expectations and your access accordingly. This doesn't make you cynical, it makes you smart. And here's another truth. Sometimes the disrespect you feel is actually your ego demanding constant validation. Not everything is about you. Not every short reply is an insult. Not every disagreement is disrespect. Sometimes people are tired. Sometimes they're distracted. Sometimes they're direct. Sometimes they're simply not prioritizing you, and that's not a crime. So part of mastering disrespect is learning to tell the difference between a real boundary violation and a bruised ego. A real boundary violation is when someone crosses a clear line. A bruised ego is when you didn't get the reaction you wanted. Your job is to respond to real boundary violations with clean strength, and to respond to bruised ego with humility and emotional control. Now let's get brutally practical. You need a simple rule to live by: never argue with disrespectful energy. The moment a conversation turns into sarcasm, insults, raised voices, or personal attacks, you stop participating. You say, "We're not doing this." You say, "I'll talk when it's respectful." You say, "I'm stepping away." And then you follow through. This is what confuses people who thrive on drama. They want you to play. They want you to fight. They want you to be emotional so they can drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. But you don't play. You don't need to win every exchange. You need to win your self-control. Now here's the final piece. You must build your identity on something stronger than other people's opinions. If your identity is, "I must be respected at all times," you will be angry every week. If your identity is, "I am a disciplined person who respects myself," you will respond with standards, not rage. Self-respect is not loud. Self-respect is consistent. It's not what you demand, it's what you enforce. So as you move forward, I want you to imagine the next time someone speaks to you the wrong way. You feel the heat rise. You feel the urge to react. And then you remember, your dignity is not protected by anger. It's protected by calm strength, clean boundaries, and the willingness to walk away from foolishness. Ask yourself, where have you been confusing anger with power? Who has been baiting you into reactions that cost you peace, reputation, or progress? What standards do you need to set so your life stops being a revolving door for disrespect? And what would change if you decided that no one gets to pull you out of character, no matter what they say or how they say it? If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Chapter 5. Reprogramming Your Anger the root. By now, you've learned how to take the remote back. Build the gap between trigger and response. Stop replaying disrespect in your head and handle disrespect with calm authority instead of emotional chaos. You've stopped feeding drama, started setting clean boundaries, and learned to stay steady when someone tries to pull you out of character. Now we're going to do what most people never do. Stop treating anger like a surface problem and start pulling it out by the roots. Because here's what you need to know. The person who makes you angry is rarely the real cause of your anger. They're the final spark, not the original fire. That's why some people can deal with the same annoying situation and barely react, while others explode. The difference isn't the situation. The difference is what they're carrying. Some people are walking around with years of unprocessed frustration, unmet needs, and silent resentment. They smile on the outside, but inside they're full. One more comment, one more inconvenience, one more little disrespect, and they blow. Not because the moment is that serious, but because the pressure has nowhere to go. So if you truly want to stop getting angry or bothered by others, you have to stop living like a pressure cooker. You need a release system. You need a reset system. You need a lifestyle that doesn't constantly refill your cup to the rim. Let's start with the most overlooked cause of anger, fatigue. When you're tired, you're not patient. When you're sleep deprived, your self-control is weak. When you've been running on caffeine and stress, your nervous system is already on edge. So the smallest thing feels huge. You've experienced this. On a good day, you can laugh off something annoying. On a bad day, the same thing feels like an insult. That tells you something important. Your anger isn't always about them. Sometimes it's about your condition. So the first root-level habit is this: protect your baseline. Your baseline is the state your body and mind return to when nothing is actively happening. If your baseline is exhausted, tense, dehydrated, underfed, overstimulated, and mentally cluttered, then irritation is guaranteed. A disciplined person doesn't just manage reactions, they manage conditions. You take sleep seriously, not perfect sleep, but protected sleep. You reduce late-night scrolling that leaves your brain fried. You stop acting like rest is optional. In the United States, people brag about being busy like it's a trophy. But if your busyness makes you reactive and miserable, it's not success. It's self-neglect wearing a suit. Now let's move to the second hidden cause: suppressed truth. A lot of anger comes from the things you won't say. You won't say no, so you resent people for asking. You won't speak up, so you resent people for stepping on you. You won't be honest about what you need, so you resent people for not reading your mind. Then you explode and call it anger issues. It's not anger issues. It's honesty issues. This is where you have to grow up emotionally. You have to stop expecting people to magically know your limits. You have to stop acting like boundaries are rude. Boundaries are clarity. Boundaries prevent rage. A man in Lowe's Angels once said something that stuck with me. He worked in a family business and his brother constantly dumped extra work on him. He'd accept it, smile, and grind through it. But inside, he was boiling. Then one day, his brother asked for one more favor and the man exploded. Full anger, insults, accusations, the whole thing. Afterward, he felt ashamed, but the truth was simple. The explosion wasn't about that one favor. It was about the 100 times he said yes when he meant no. So he changed his life with one sentence: I can't do that. He didn't say it with anger, he said it like a fact, and at first it felt uncomfortable. His brother pushed back, tried to guilt him, tried to make him feel selfish. But the man stayed steady. And slowly the relationship reset. Not because his brother became perfect, but because access changed. That's what happens when you stop suppressing the truth. Your anger loses fuel. Now the third root cause is something most people don't want to admit: pride. Pride is fragile. Pride gets offended easily. Pride needs to be right. Pride needs to be seen as smart, competent, important, and in control. Pride is what turns small things into battles. Someone disagrees with you and pride turns it into war. Someone corrects you and pride makes you defensive. Someone doesn't appreciate you and pride makes you bitter. Pride takes everything personally because pride thinks everything is about you. But a strong person doesn't live through pride. A strong person lives through purpose. Purpose doesn't have time to be offended all day. When you're obsessed with building your life, you stop wasting hours proving yourself. You don't need to win every conversation. You need to win your habits. You need to win your mornings. You need to win your discipline. So here's a deep question you need to face honestly. Are you angry because you're disrespected or because you're not in control? A lot of anger is really control addiction. Traffic is angering because you can't control it. Other people are angering because you can't control them. Delays are angering because you can't control time. Mistakes are angering because you can't control outcomes. So the root level work is learning to release control where control is impossible. Control your effort, control your standards, control your behavior, control your next step. But stop trying to control the universe. That's not confidence. That's anxiety dressed up as dominance. Now let's talk about the fourth root cause: unresolved pain. Some people don't just get angry because someone is rude today. They get angry because they have old wounds that never healed. They carry rejection, humiliation, betrayal, abandonment, and disappointment like a backpack full of bricks. Then someone does something that reminds them of the past, and suddenly they're not reacting to today. They're reacting to 10 years ago. That's why the same trigger hits harder for some people, because it connects to an old scar. If you have a bruise on your arm and someone bumps it, the bump wasn't heavy. The bruise was deep. So you have to become honest about your bruises. Where are you still carrying a story that says you're not respected? Where are you still carrying a fear that says you're not safe? Where are you still carrying a belief that says people always leave, people always betray, people always disappoint? These beliefs will shape your reactions until you challenge them. Now, challenging them doesn't mean pretending you weren't hurt. It means refusing to let the hurt drive the car. You can't change what happened, but you can change what it controls. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to stop acting like your anger is your protector. A lot of people treat anger like a guard dog. They think, If I stay angry, I won't be hurt again. But anger doesn't prevent pain, it multiplies it. It turns you hard, distrustful, and tense. It makes you live in defense mode. The better protector is discernment. Discernment is calm awareness. It's seeing people clearly. It's knowing when to engage and when to walk away. It's knowing your standards and enforcing them without rage. Discernment keeps you safe without making you bitter. Now we get to the practical root-level system that changes everything, the daily reset. If you don't reset daily, you accumulate anger. You carry yesterday into today. You carry last week into this week. You carry old frustration into new conversations. So you need a reset routine that clears the system. This can look like a simple evening walk where you let your nervous system settle. It can be journaling where you dump the thoughts onto paper instead of letting them loop in your head. It can be the gym, because physical effort burns off stress chemicals and returns you to baseline. It can be prayer, silence, meditation, or sitting in your car for 5 minutes before you walk into your house. It can be turning off the news and social media that keeps you emotionally inflamed. In the U.S., people are constantly consuming outrage. It's everywhere. Headlines designed to trigger you. Posts designed to provoke you. Arguments designed to polarize you. If you keep drinking outrage every day, don't be surprised when you're angry all the time. You have to protect your mind like it's your home, because it is. Now here's a simple habit that will change the way you react to people. Start your day with a standard. Before you walk into the world, decide who you are today. Today I am calm. Today I do not rush. Today I don't argue with disrespect. Today I respond with standards. Today I protect my peace. Today I move with purpose. When you decide in advance, you're less likely to get pulled into impulsive reactions. You're not improvising your character. You're living it. That's discipline. And now I want to give you a final root-level shift that separates reactive people from powerful people. Stop needing people to be different for you to be okay. This is where freedom is. When you need others to be thoughtful, you're at their mercy. When you need others to be respectful, you're at their mercy. When you need others to be fair, you're at their mercy. But when you decide, I can be okay regardless, you become unbothered. That doesn't mean you accept mistreatment. It means you stop emotionally collapsing every time the world is imperfect. You stop being shocked that humans act like humans. You stop living like your peace is fragile. Your peace becomes durable. It becomes trained. It becomes strong. So now, as you move toward the final chapter, I want you to think about your roots. Not the triggers, the roots. What conditions make you more reactive than you need to be? Where are you tired, overstimulated, or carrying too much pressure? What truth have you been suppressing that is turning into resentment? Where is pride making you interpret everything as a personal attack? What old pain is still controlling your reactions in the present? And what would your life look like if you started resetting daily, protecting your baseline, and living from purpose instead of ego? If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Chapter 6. Becoming unbothered is your new identity. You've already taken back the remote control, built the gap between trigger and response, stopped letting people rent space in your head, learned to handle disrespect without losing your dignity, and started digging out anger at the root through better boundaries, better baselines, and daily resets. You've been training composure instead of reacting on impulse. and you've been shifting from pride and control addiction into purpose and self-command. Now this final chapter is about making it permanent, because the goal isn't to calm down once in a while. The goal is to become the kind of person who stays steady no matter what. This is where it all comes together. Most people think being unbothered is a mood. They think it's something you feel on a good day when life is smooth, sleep is decent, and nobody tests you. That's not unbothered. That's comfort. Real unbothered is an identity. It's who you are when the test shows up. It's who you are when someone disrespects you, disappoints you, pushes you, challenges you, ignores you, or tries to drag you into their chaos. You don't become unbothered by hoping. You become unbothered by deciding. Because the moment you decide, you stop negotiating with your impulses. There's a difference between someone who reacts and someone who leads themselves. Reactive people live like their emotions are the boss. Led people live like their values are the boss. The world throws something at them and they don't ask, "What do I feel like doing?" They ask, "Who am I and what do I do now?" That's identity. And identity is powerful because it eliminates debate. If you believe you're the kind of person who stays calm under pressure, you don't need to argue with yourself every time life tries to provoke you. You just return to what's true about you. But you need to understand what you're up against. Anger is not just a feeling. Anger is a habit. And habits don't disappear because you understand them. They disappear because you replace them. So in this final chapter, you're going to lock in the replacement. The first part is this: you stop treating triggers like surprises. You start expecting them. A lot of people get caught off guard by irritation, like they didn't know life would be inconvenient, like they didn't know people would be selfish sometimes, like they didn't know someone would cut them off, talk slick, show up late, or say something dumb. But you're not new here. You know the world has friction, so you stop expecting smoothness. You stop expecting fairness from everyone. You stop expecting maturity from immature people. And you stop expecting life to always cooperate with your schedule. That doesn't make you negative, it makes you prepared. Because the person who expects resistance doesn't panic when it appears, they adjust. So when the irritation arrives, you don't say, "Unbelievable." You say, "This is the training." That's the mindset of someone who wins. Here's the second part. You make calm your default through repetition, not willpower. Willpower is unreliable. It's what you have when you're rested, fed, and feeling good. But you don't need a system for your best days. You need a system for your worst days. So the way you make this permanent is simple. Every time you feel the spark of anger, you practice the same sequence. You pause. You name the sensation. You breathe longer out than in. You ask what outcome you want. You choose clean action or you walk away. You don't wait for the perfect moment to practice. You practice in the real moment. The grocery store moment, the traffic moment, the coworker moment, the family moment, the text message moment. Small moments, repeated, create identity. That's how athletes are built. They don't become great from one championship game. They become great from thousands of ordinary practices where they did the basics with discipline. Your calm is the same. Your patience is the same. Your self-control is the same. It is trained. Now here's the third part. You build a life that is too important to be constantly interrupted by nonsense. This is the part people forget. If you don't have a mission, you'll be available for drama. If you don't have a purpose, you'll be easily distracted by petty things. If you don't have something you're building, you'll spend your life reacting to what other people are doing. You need a direction that makes small irritations feel small. When you know what you're working toward, you stop wasting your best energy on people who aren't contributing to your future. When your life has momentum, random disrespect doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like noise. So ask yourself, what are you building right now? What's your mission? What are you aiming at? What are you creating in your body, your career, your relationships, your finances, your mind? Because when your days are filled with purpose, you don't have space for useless anger. You don't have time to replay comments. You don't have time to argue with strangers. You don't have time to prove yourself. You're busy becoming. Now let's talk about the hardest test of all, not strangers, not coworkers, the people closest to you. Because the people close to you have history with you. They've seen you in weaker versions. They've seen you emotional. They've seen you reactive. They've seen you snap. They've seen you fold. They've seen you beg for understanding. They've seen you argue. They've seen you carry resentment. And when you start changing, sometimes they don't like it. Not because your change is bad, but because it changes the old pattern. Some people are comfortable with the version of you they can predict, the version they can trigger, the version they can pull into an argument, the version they can manipulate with guilt or tone. When you become unbothered, you stop being easy to control. So don't be surprised if your new calm feels threatening to someone who is used to your reactions. Don't be surprised if someone tries harder to push you just to see if the old you is still in there. This is where you must be strong. You don't prove you've changed by talking about it. You prove you've changed by staying calm when the test shows up. You keep your face steady. You keep your voice low. You keep your words clean. You enforce your boundaries without anger. You say, "I'm not having this conversation like this." You say, "I'm stepping away." You say, "We can talk later when it's respectful." And then you follow through. Consistency is what makes people believe you. Now let's go deeper into what unbothered really means. It doesn't mean you never feel anything. It means you are not controlled by what you feel. It means you can be disappointed without being destructive. You can be frustrated without being foolish. You can be corrected without being offended. You can be challenged without becoming cruel. That's emotional leadership. And emotional leadership has a reward, respect. Not the kind of respect you demand. The kind of respect you earn because people can feel your stability. When you stop reacting, people stop playing games. When you stop yelling, people start listening. When you stop chasing validation, your presence gets heavier. And even if some people still disrespect you, it doesn't matter because you don't need their behavior to be okay. Now here's the next level. You stop taking anger personally, meaning you stop judging yourself for feeling it. You stop calling yourself broken. You stop acting like one angry moment means you failed. No, you're training. You're going to have moments where you react. You're going to have moments where you feel bothered. That doesn't erase your progress. It just shows you where the work is. The key is what you do immediately after. Do you justify it and keep going? Or do you reset and recommit? A powerful person doesn't spiral after a mistake. They correct quickly. So if you snap at someone, you don't spend 3 days drowning in shame. You pause, you acknowledge it, you clean it up, you say, "That wasn't my best, I'm correcting it." Then you get back to your standard. That's discipline. Now let's talk about something that will protect your peace for the rest of your life, choosing your battles. Many people are angry because they fight everything. They fight opinions. They fight tone. They fight traffic. They fight politics. They fight customer service. They fight strangers. They fight family. They fight the internet. That's not strength. That's chaos addiction. You are not required to engage. Sometimes the most powerful move is to let it pass like wind. You see it. You feel it. You let it go. You return to your mission because the world is full of bait, and bait is designed to pull you away from your priorities. You stop biting. Now here's the final shift that ties this entire audiobook together. Your peace is not something you find. Your peace is something you defend. You defend it with your boundaries. You defend it with your routines. You defend it with your standards. You defend it with who you allow close. You defend it with the stories you refuse to tell yourself. You defend it with the attention you refuse to waste. You defend it with the identity you choose every day. This is not about being calm for the sake of being calm. This is about building a life that doesn't get destroyed by impulsive reactions. This is about becoming the kind of person who doesn't sabotage their future with 30 seconds of emotion, because anger has cost people marriages. Anger has cost people friendships. Anger has cost people promotions. Anger has cost people opportunities. Anger has cost people health. Anger has cost people years. You're done paying that price. So here's your call to action, and it's direct. From today forward, you stop letting strangers control your mood. You stop letting disrespect pull you out of character. You stop letting rumination steal your attention. You stop using anger as a release valve. You stop living like your peace is fragile. You become durable. When irritation shows up, you pause. When someone pushes you, you breathe and choose. When disrespect appears, you respond with standards. When your mind tries to replay, you interrupt and move forward. When you're tired, you protect your baseline. When you feel pressure, you reset daily. When your ego wants to fight, you return to purpose. And every time you do it, you become a little more unbothered. Not because the world got nicer, but because you got stronger. Now take a moment and picture the future version of you. The version of you who walks through life steady, calm in traffic, clear at work, firm with family, unshaken by comments, uncontrolled by opinions. Not cold, not passive, not checked out, but powerful, present, unmovable. That person is not far away. That person is built by decisions you make daily. So ask yourself, who do you want to be when the next trigger hits? What identity are you choosing right now? The reactive one or the disciplined one? What would happen in your relationships if you stopped fighting for the last word and started fighting for your peace? What would happen in your career if you stopped engaging in drama and started moving like a professional with standards? What would happen in your health if you stopped poisoning your body with constant stress and started living with control? And what would your life look like 1 year from now if you treated composure as your new identity, not a temporary mood? If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue.